Welcome to Table for One, Bill Davies. We are delighted to have you, neighbor of Alonso's. So good to see you. We could have all met for coffee. We could have gone to Irv's and done this in person. But it's nice to see you here in your individual box. We're so happy to have you with us. You picked a great, like a classic. People pick the gamut, like obscure horror movies, stuff from childhood. You have picked an absolute legend of a film, LA Confidential. So we're thrilled to see you. Welcome. What is LA Confidential about?
So LA Confidential is a neo-noir film that came out in 1997, I believe, and it's about thematically, it's kind of like I watched some videos like, is it possible to be a moral policeman? And it's the plot of which is that there's a drug kingpin, Mickey Cohen, who is arrested at the very beginning of the film, and then heroin tied to that kingpin is gone missing, and then a lot of people die as we're trying to figure out who's taking the missing heroin and how these plots all tie together. This is an adaptation of a James Ellroy novel, which I have not read, but from what I've heard, it only takes about 20% of the plot of the novel, because the screenwriters, Curtis Hanson and Brian Helgeland, decided to narrow it in on these three main protagonists, and then any plot that was not immediately tied to one of their stories got excised. So, and even still, there's so much plot. I've said before, I think I may have seen this movie 20 times, but I only recently could describe the plot to you. It's so much going on. And actually, I was looking up reviews about this before, and I found one from Roger Ebert, and he said, Curtis Hanson weaves a labyrinthine plot, but the twists are always clear because the characters are so sharply drawn. We don't know who's guilty or innocent, but we know who should be. And I think it's kind of like everything is tied so much to character in this film that it's even if you're not quite grasping all the plot details, you're still on board.
Yeah. So of all the movies in all the world, why did you pick this one to talk about with us?
During the pandemic, I was thinking a lot about movies that I loved, and I put together like my top 10 list of which ones were the most important to me. And this is one of them. And of the ones that were on this list, this is the one I've rewatched the most. And I honestly don't know exactly why. Like, I just love watching this movie. It's gorgeous to look at. I think every single element of it works so well. The cinematography is amazing. The script is amazing. The performances are amazing. The costume designs are amazing. The score, like, there's not a single part of the editing. Oh my God. Like, there's not a single part of this movie that I don't love watching. I'm never out of it. I'm just always on it. So, so it's just a very fun movie. And then also kind of, since we were doing this for LA Fire Relief, I figured an LA-based movie would be appropriate as well.
Nice. Are you from LA originally?
I grew up in Orange County, but I've lived in West Los Angeles and now West Hollywood for the last 20 couple years. So I'm around this area a lot.
Right. And so you're very near the Formosa Cafe.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because when I watch it now, like the Formosa Cafe is still there, but they've built this whole shopping center adjacent to it. And so there's actually a Mendocino Farms right next to it. And I actually met Tim Grierson there once.
Oh, wow.
One of our favorites.
It was a couple of years ago, and I was eating at the Mendocino Farms next to the Formosa Cafe, and all of a sudden Kim Grierson walks in, and I'm like, oh my God, I recognize this guy. So it's so funny. He said that like the only time he gets recognized is from Breakfast All Day fans.
Literally every film festival he goes to, without exception. Like, he texted me a couple of weeks ago from South by Southwest, and he's like, the person who gave me my badge, the volunteer who checked me in, was like, hey, I love you on Breakfast All Day. Like, we don't get recognized. No one stops me and Alonso in public, but Tim is very popular. Alonso, what are your thoughts on this movie?
Oh, I love this movie. I had read the book and was a big fan of the book. And yeah, so you think this is densely plotted, like Walt Disney figures into the novel. Like, there's just so many different things going on. And I remember I read it when I had first moved here, the first time that I lived here in the early 90s. And it was that first moment of like, oh, I know what intersection they're talking about. You know, that kind of moment of really kind of getting, you know, the LA geography of it all. But I remember being like excited, but also dubious about the movie because like there's no way you adapt that book.
Mhm.
But yeah, they very wisely just like chose stream basically of it. And yeah, I think it's great. I mean, Hansen talked a lot about how when he was pitching the movie, that in addition to the script, he had this whole sort of lookbook, and it was just this album of like photos of what LA looked like in the 50s and what people dressed like and what the buildings were like, and just all this really sort of capturing the era, because that was so much of what he was trying to convey in the movie, and I think he does. And
Totally.
there's all these things that are still around, like the Crossroads of the World and the Frolic Room and stuff that he gets maximum use out of, in addition to just like the way everybody's dressed, you know, and the way that, like Dave always says about the mid-century, he goes, everything was terrible, but everything looked great. And this movie really conveys that.
Yeah, I think I hadn't seen it in many, like a couple decades. It's been a long
same
time.
here.
And so I was watching it this time with an eye to the locations. And as you say, like, how was it evocative of this era of Los Angeles? I am from LA. I'm third generation LA. And so it was cool to realize like, oh, I know that. The house that Kim Basinger lives in, I have been to that house.
Oh.
It's where Wilcox becomes Rosewood. It's like the top of the Wilshire, the Wilshire Country Club is what it is, right? Yeah. And so there's a mom who lives there, who was a mom at my son's elementary school, who did like an orientation for new parents. And I'm like, oh wait, I know what that is. Like, it's just a trip to realize like we've been to the Frolic Room, we've been to the Formosa Cafe. Like it gets all that so right. I was impressed with its ability to be, as you say, so steeped in this era and yet so vital. And it was vital and relevant in the late 90s. It is vital and relevant now in terms of corruption, in terms of the desire for fame and what you'll do for it, in terms of people who come to LA with dreams of stardom and what happens to them, how the machinery like chews them up and spits them out. And so you see that with all these women who, you know, came to LA. They were beautiful women. They're probably the prettiest girl in their town. And they came to LA, whatever the town, Bisbee, Arizona, and came to LA with dreams of stardom. And people preyed upon them. Yeah. So it's so of its time it feels like a movie that was made in the era in which it takes place, right? This could have been made in the 50s. It feels like, in terms of how creamy the cinematography is,
Sure.
In terms of like everything that Kim Basinger wears, like the costume design is just perfection. We were talking, Alonso, about Dante Spinotti, the cinematographer, when we saw The Alto Nights.
Oh, right. Yes.
He also shot that.
Yes.
And so this is a much better example of what he does. But as far as like the use, like the inky shadows and like the pops of color, like every time someone steps out of the Frolic Room, and like just the pop of neon and how it's like beautiful, but there's something kind of lurid and dangerous that lighting conveys, that contrast conveys. So I thought it was great. It's so multi-layered. I can imagine, Bill, that every time you watch it, you probably see something different in terms of someone's delivery, in terms of someone's motivation.
Yeah, you know, actually, this last time I watched it, the thing that stuck out to me was the costume design. Like, there's three central characters, Bud White, Exley, and Jack Vincennes. And Bud only has two jackets in the entire film. And they both look sort of similar to each other, but neither one of them looks like they belong to a character who cares about clothes. They're utilitarian, and that's it. And Exley's characters, he has a few more clothes, but he doesn't have a lot of money. So it's like they're tailored, there's like sharp lines, and they're like steely colored as opposed to Bud's like warm tones, but they're not expensive. And then Jack Vincennes has an entirely new ensemble in every scene he's in.
He's the flashy one.
It's like, so they really show, like, I think that what you were saying, Alonso, about like Curtis Hansen's lookbook that he clearly had such a clear vision of what he wanted this movie to become, that he was able to convey that to every single person in his crew and in the cast. And so everybody was working together towards the same approach. And it really, really comes across because everything's working.
Bill, I'm curious, have you ever seen the documentary Los Angeles Plays Itself?
No, but I'm writing it down right now.
Oh, it's so good. It's about 3 hours, but it just flies by. It's all about how filmmakers use Los Angeles as a location. and what it says about the city and what it says about the way things are reflected in movies. There's a whole section about how like all the really cool modernist architecture of Los Angeles always winds up being the villain's house.
Oh,
David Strathairn.
and exactly. So like, yeah, David Strathairn's, like this gorgeous house, like all of the really cool sort of like sleek lined houses always wind up being where the bad guy lives. In fact, we even have a zine about that. Yeah. So it's like, this is, and there's clips of LA Confidential in that movie to underscore that. But yeah, that's such a fascinating choice always because, those houses are great. You drive by them or you take the tour or whatever, and they're amazing and they're part of what makes LA so great. But there's something about in movies where they come off as like cold or clinical or something, and so they don't convey the warmth of home that people come to expect. And so they always sort of saddle them with the sociopath.
Speaking of homes, since you saw the Lynn Bracken home, Christy, is the interior actually the interior of that home?
I don't think so. I think like that front door is like that window and like that. I remember walking in, and then when you step inside, it's a set. But speaking of,
there's a lot on location shooting here, right? But I would be surprised if everything was, a full location. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that like the house in Elysian Park, for example, where so much happens, that looks like that's the inside of that house, maybe. But speaking of costume design, that's such an astute point that you make, and also that's tragically true for Lynn. Like she dresses up, but she doesn't go anywhere. She wears something different every time, and it's exquisite, and it hugs her body perfectly. But it's for the Johns who come to her house
to receive,
yes. Right. She's not going, except for the one time where she goes out to the liquor store to buy booze, and she's like a vision in the cape and the red lip, the pop of the red lip, right? So
the white
there she's cloaking herself. She is literally cloaking. She's covering herself up. She doesn't want to be seen.
Right.
And so that's what's so tragic about that.
And really the only two times that her costumes aren't shiny are when she's on the date with Bud at the movie, and she has like the ponytail and she's just wearing like a cotton shirt, and then at the end her yellow dress is like a dress, like it's pretty, but it's not like glamorous, whereas everything else is a front she's putting on.
And there's the whole hair story there because
she cut her hair.
She's being Veronica Lake, which is very much about the peekaboo curl. So so that she pulls it back on the date with Bud because she doesn't have to play that role. And then at the end, she cuts it like, I'm done with this. Yeah. That says so much about the character and who she's pretending to be and who she really is.
For sure. And that she lets him see her real bedroom.
Oh,
right? Yes. Everyone sees the set in the living room.
Work bedroom.
Right. And then he's like, why me? Like it's so delicate that moment. It's so intimate, and like you can feel like the tension and the excitement of like, oh, this is real now. And she's opening herself up to him.
And that adds a lot of heart to the film, having their romance kind of take place in her actual bedroom with like the facades, removed, and like the pillow with Bisbee on it. I was thinking about in the movie Fargo, the romance between the central characters, are Marge and her husband, are there's like a central heart to the film that they provide by showing their romance, and although it's very different, the Bud White and Lynn Bracken romance in LA Confidential provides a heart in a film where there's so much gray morality happening, and so you have one thing where you're like, oh, this is something we can hold on to. And then when she seduces Ed Exley, you're like, oh crap, was even that not true? The first time I watched it, you're like, oh Christ, like what am I even holding on to here?
Well, what's that about, do you think? Why does she allow herself to be seduced? Or why did she seduce him?
I thought that she was paid to do so because they needed to get the photos.
Is that it?
Yeah, I thought
because he's behind the window.
Yeah, Dudley gets David Strathairn to like arrange this to happen so that Danny DeVito can take the pictures of it, so they can show them to Russell Crowe and he'll kill, or to Bud and he'll kill Ed.
But we'll go after Ed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and also like at that point in the story, Ed, from Bud's perspective, Ed is a villain, right? So if Bud is conveying that to Lynn, that Ed's been this like antagonist to him, she may actually really believe that this is something she can do that's positive. Little does she
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should talk about the performances because everyone is so great in this.
Yeah.
Like young, lean, hungry Russell Crowe, like wounded but tough. Everyone's so good in this.
I had seen Russell Crowe at that point in like The Sum of Us. No, actually that came later. Now that I think about it,
Did it?
I'd seen him in Proof.
Oh.
Yeah, The Sum of Us didn't open in the States until '95. So wait, sorry.
No, this came out
This
in
is
97.
97. Okay, so I'd seen him in Some of Us, and I had seen him in Proof, and that was kind of it. And I had seen Guy Pearce in Adventures of Priscilla, and that was that was pretty much all that I had going in on them. And of course, now we know all the stuff that Guy Pearce has been talking about recently with
Kevin Spacey.
With Kevin Spacey, because every movie now has an asterisk on it. But yeah, no, they're all three of them are really good, and they immediately capture who these guys are because who these guys are is so important to telling this story.
Let's talk about Kevin Spacey because, like, he's really good in this, you
He
guys.
is.
I mean, he
He
sucks and he's
is.
skeevy, but like, this is peak Kevin Spacey between
Yeah.
Usual Suspects and this, and then American Beauty a few years later. Like,
Yeah.
he's so
Seven.
subtly good, and his delivery is
rest.
so unexpected every time. Like,
Yeah.
it's a bummer that he sucks.
I know. That's the thing. It's like it's one thing for shitty actors to be also shitty in real life, but like when you're really talented, it's like, ugh. Why must you?
Yeah, and it's
question. We
hard
talk
to
about it-
separate. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was about to ask the question you're addressing. Please continue. I stepped on you. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say it's hard to separate the art from the artist sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think in this one there's enough other artists around him that I'm not
Yeah.
as concerned about it.
That helps.
But sometimes it's really like it's so distracting that I can't enjoy the film. So it is a shame, like because he's such a talent. He's so multifaceted. I mean, even his voice performance in A Bug's Life, or like everything in the '90s
Yeah.
that Kevin Spacey did, his performance in Seven, everything was just so like new and exciting.
And
Yeah.
James Cromwell coming off of playing the kindly Farmer Hoggett
Right.
in Babe was like, oh my God, you're the worst. Like
Yeah.
he's such a
Yeah.
great villain in this.
He's terrifying. Yeah. I
And,
want to ask
and,
about
a, and a great use of Danny DeVito.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He's the first voice we hear, right? He provides the voiceover off the top. I want to talk about the way it's edited. You mentioned, Bill, how great the editing is. Like the scene in which they interrogate all three of those African-American night owl suspects, I think is a great example of like how the editing can be propulsive. Like this is a big sprawling movie. It's long, but then there are these moments where like all the dominoes are falling and it's really, really quick and exciting.
And you have
Yeah,
to get information.
Well, and also when the night owl suspects escape, and then Exley and one of Dudley's guys, I can't remember the name, go after them. The editing like cuts between things. It's like there's no wasted time. Like you say, Christy, the dominoes are falling into place, so we're not going to waste time on any frames that are not unnecessary. And at other times it's much more calmly paced. It's just it understands the tone it's trying to achieve at any moment.
I want to ask too, there's a theme in this segment that we kind of see throughout, and that's like the use of homosexuality as a weapon. Right? Either like against the DA because he's closeted, or with the three suspects and saying like, we know you became a sissy in jail or whatever. Like, what do you think about that as far as like being evocative of this time?
Well, the 50s.
Yeah. I mean, as a gay man myself, I don't, whatever. It's part of what that was, and it doesn't disturb me. It's kind of like, well, I would expect this at this time.
Yeah, it is sadly accurate. That's the thing, I mean, because that was such a bar you could not cross at that point. Partially, and it's funny, this movie never mentions communism. Which I think in Hollywood of 1954 was very much a going concern. And part of how homophobia functioned back then was this notion that if you were pink, you were maybe also red.
Actually, it does. Danny DeVito does mention it once, though, because at one point, Jack Vincennes is asking him a question about David Strathairn's character, who I'm drinking on name, but he says like, he's not queer, if he's not red, it can't propel mine.
Right.
So it does.
He does bring it
like
up. Yeah.
1 second. It does mention communism, but you're right. It's not really. It's not addressing that as much. That was a huge scare for everybody at that time.
Yeah. And I do love when they show the copies of Hush Hush magazine, because it looks exactly like Confidential, which is what they're clearly like referencing. And in fact, actually, that's part of why Elroy put it in the title of the book in the first place, was because Confidential was such a big force at that point. It's sort of like scaring people into, like that their secrets would be exposed,
Also, young, handsome Simon Baker.
Yeah.
Oh,
as the guy who dies.
It's funny that
Credited
you're calling
as
him a
Simon
kid and
Baker
he's like
Denny.
30. Oh,
Oh,
sorry.
wow.
What did you say, Alonso? I didn't hear
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. No, I just noticed in the closing credits he's listed as Simon Baker Denny, which I'd never seen before. But yeah, no, he is. He feels like an ingenue, but you're right. He was 30.
Yeah, no, but he gives a great performance too. Like,
Yeah.
And it's a totally sympathetic one where the guy just can't catch a break.
Yeah.
And there's some really good faces in this movie, like people who are important but don't get a lot of dialogue, like Stens, and like the other cop who pretends not to know who Buzz Meeks is, and Buzz Meeks for that matter. Like they've got these great meaty character actor faces where you see them once and then you remember for the rest of the movie who they are and why they function.
And the mom of the woman.
Oh, Susan's
Yes.
mom.
Yes.
Susan's mom, Susan Lefferts's mom. Yeah. Like, oh my gosh, what a character actress. That is.
Well, we do numbers here on Table for One like we do on our normal reviews. So from 1 to 10, what would you give LA Confidential?
So I'd give it a 9.7 because it's obviously very important to me. There's a couple things about it that I think drop it down just a little bit for me. One, the plot is so indecipherable that although I'm really on board with it, a lot of the people I talked to about this movie saw it once and then never saw it again. And I totally understand that. It's just, I think
They're
that
happier.
they move on with their lives. And then there's like a couple little things like that draw me out of it that are so minor, but I mean that they're so brief that it's not a big deal. So I go 9.7. How about you two?
Alonso, what do you say?
I'm like a 9.4. It's definitely, I think, a modern classic. And, people always point to it as, the movie that should have won the Oscar of the year of Titanic. But, I get the function of both of these movies in the ecosystem.
Yeah. Kim Basinger won, the screenplay won. So I'm going to give it a 10. I think it's awesome. Like, you guys are being really rough on LA Confidential. I'm sorry. Your standards are too damn high.
Too high.
All right. You're wonderful. This was a blast. Thank you so much, Bill. We love seeing you. And thank you for supporting our fire relief efforts.
Yeah. Thank you. This has been great.